have their coffee this morning.
Prepping mine now.
I'm drinking Mountain Dew.
I mean, that's basically your coffee.
Right.
I can't imagine a Craig without Mountain Dew. It's like a Caleb without coffee.
It's my caffeine for sure.
It's ridiculous. It's too sweet. Gives me the
oh God.
I get the tinglies. Which I quit drinking like Cokes and stuff about a year and a half ago now, close to 2 years now. So I feel like if I drank a Mountain Dew right now, my hair would just stand up on end.
I'd go into a coma.
I have to drink the diet, of course, so it's not as sweet. But
I could see that, yeah. I mean, that being said, I drink about a gallon of coffee a day, though, so it wouldn't be the caffeine that would kill me.
Oh, there's plenty in diet drinks that'll do it for you eventually.
The Hubs had to have an intervention the other day. He was like, how much coffee are you actually drinking a week? And I was like, I had like 4 cups here before I go to school and work. And he was like, do you drink coffee at work? I'm like, yeah. He was like, how much? I was like, yeah, 2 pots. He was like, dude, you're drinking like a gallon and a half of coffee a day. You're going to die. And he like threw a water bottle at me. He was like, drink this clear liquid. And I didn't know what it was.
Hey, it worked for Teddy Roosevelt.
That's true. And he had a bear named after him.
Yeah, so throw that back at Roger next time he brings that up. Hey, I'm like Teddy Roosevelt.
See, Matt,
take that away from me.
This is why I need you to I need you to just kind of follow me around and be my comeback. Like you're going to be in charge of like comeback regulation. You're the chief officer of retorts from here on out.
That's why, in the similar vein to what you're talking about, that's why I cannot own an espresso machine. If I have espresso at the push of a button, it's trouble.
You just main vein it. Just run a little line right into your artery.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another. It sounds like an energetic, fun-filled episode of a highly caffeinated crew of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. This is episode 146, and as always, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
Can I just say that it's good to hear your voices?
Sure, you can say that.
What's stopping you from saying it?
And
you have control of the mic.
I just did. I was hoping that it would inspire similar feelings, but I see where I stand.
But you have to excuse me. I fell out of the back of a U-Haul yesterday, so I'm I'm pretty sore and tired. Yeah, I missed the ramp. I had a box in my hand. Missed the ramp. Fell straight to the ground.
Jeez, yeah. I mean, are you okay other than being sore and tired?
Yeah, I mean, I missed busting my head open by a couple of inches on the curb, so I'm okay.
In my head, I'm imagining a strategic role, which basically makes you Daredevil in my book.
No, I threw the box and did a martial arts land.
Oh, sweet.
That makes it even
brace
better.
your arms.
Are you kidding?
Brace your fall with your arms instead of your hands, so you don't break your arms. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So did the wife run to the Walmarts, get you a helmet for the rest of the day?
Yeah, this was at the end of the day. We had already unloaded everything into the apartment building. Just so you know, the listeners know, it was my niece and nephew that moved. We'd already loaded everything into the apartment. We were going to the storage, and it was just me and the nephew. And yeah. So it was at the end of the day. I was exhausted anyways. And yeah, that's what I needed to top off the day.
Well, I just want you to know that in my head movie, you totally did a jujitsu ninja roll and it looked awesome. So
it was more of like just to fall on your ass and brace yourself with your arms. But hey, we'll go with the ninja roll martial art. Yeah.
Don't take this away from me. So how's everybody doing this week other than falling out of trucks and everything? Everybody having a great week reading some cool comics?
Crammed in a bunch yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, I got no comics read this week, and I had a pretty craptacular week, but we'll just leave it at that. So
How's everybody's week? Mine sucked and was abusive. How about you guys?
Pretty much.
And we all have weeks like that, but hopefully, the next hour and a half of your life will. I don't know that it'll lighten that load, but maybe it'll give you a chance to think about some other stuff for a little bit. Because we
definitely the better part of the week.
I hope so. I hope so. Because we are going to talk about some comics, because that's what we do on the show from time to time. Each week, every Sunday, we get together because we marginally enjoy each other's company, and we chat about some sequential books, some art, and some stories that we read for the week. And if you enjoy this show, if you are listening, and maybe you're somebody who has not dipped into our the extracurricular activities that come with doing a podcast in the year of our Lord 2020, you can head over to the Facebooks. It's almost like a social crack pipe where you can just suck in all the goodness. Don't do crack, kids. It's bad. But you can join our Facebook group and talk about what you're reading, talk about what you're watching, all that fun stuff. We also have an Instagram and a Twitter page. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. Follow us, like our stuff. Give me that kind of what would you say? It's like giving a treat to a dog. Every time you like my post, I feel like I've been a good boy, so it makes me feel
affirmation.
Good. Yeah, it's affirmation. Thank you, Chairman of Retorts. I appreciate your service. Well, since you crammed a whole bunch of comics in yesterday, Matt, tell me, give me a little preview. What'd you read, brother?
A couple of standouts from Image. John Layman and Dan Boltwood's Chew, number 3. I thought this was the best issue yet. This was really good. The momentum in the story is picking up, getting a little bit more serious. And Dan Boltwood's art, man, I really dig this guy's style, specifically with this kind of story. John Layman's narrative. I really thought his art was the best yet in this issue as well. Have either one of you guys read this one?
So I haven't read this issue yet, but I know in the first issue, one of my, not complaints, but, things was that it's not Rob Guillory. But as it's went on, I've lost that feeling. I feel like he's really grown into his own on this book.
Yeah, I really, really dug it. And also I read from Image, from Jonathan Hickman and Mike Huddleston, Decorum, number 5. About this one, you guys read this one?
Define reading.
Yeah, long pause. So I'll take that as a negatory.
Again, I haven't read anything from this week, so.
So I read the book, but when I say I read the book, it was mostly just me drooling over every page of Hiddleston's art. Because I still don't have the first fracking clue what's happening in this book. I've got to go back and read it all at once.
So yeah, that's the standout in this issue. Is the artwork in this issue is off the chain, as the kids say.
They do indeed.
It is badass. The artwork in this issue is the best of the entire series yet, in my unqualified opinion. It was killer, man. I loved this one. I like the narrative.
Would you suggest somebody jumped in on this book, on this issue?
I would not. I would recommend that they read the first 4, then get into this one. If you want to just look at them purdy pictures, I would say yes. But if you actually want to follow the narrative, however challenging it may be, then I would recommend putting the work in and reading the first 4.
Yeah, Caleb, you missed this. We were at the local comic book store, Kapow, and this guy comes in and is browsing the walls and walks over and he just looks at issue. I think it was issue number 3 of Decorum on the wall, like, maybe I should start with this book. It's early enough in.
Yeah. I started laughing. I was like, oh God.
To be fair, I've read all the issues and I don't know that I'd be like, I don't know that he'd be any less lost than I am right now. Because like you said, this is Hickman at his most Hickmanish. And you have got to almost read this all in one sitting, or Like I don't know. I don't have the attention span or the mental capacity to remember all of what he's dropping in each issue and then like recall that a month later. It's a lot.
Dense, bro. It's dense.
It is, and that's not a bad thing. Like that's not a knock. That's wholly that's my issue, and not like we shouldn't expect or demand like less quality from Hickman because of like my issue or our issues of readers because it's amazing. I just don't know what it is yet.
Man, less of my writers so I can understand what they're saying.
Yeah, can you dumb this down for me, please?
Yeah.
Speak to me like I'm dumb because I feel like I might be.
Yeah. So those were the big two standouts for me. Issue number 100 to wrap up my three. Issue number 100, DC's Batman. This was really, really good, man. This was a great wrap up to this ongoing arc. That Tynan.
It's an issue number 100 and it's not an anthology. I'm shocked.
Why is that?
All anniversary issues end up being anthologies and they don't even care if they're in the middle of a storyline or not. So I'm shocked that they just continued on with their story.
Well, despite to kind of sidestep Craig's
hatred of anthologies.
nomenclature triggering, the issue was very good and I highly recommend reading it. It was just a very, very skillful and neat way to wrap up what's been going on in the current arc. And there's been like subplots, sub-stories within the current arc, and it wrapped up really well. I know you didn't read it, Craig. Did you read it, Caleb?
It's still on my stack. It's something I've got to get to. So Craig falling out of the back of the trucks. Caleb has midterms next week, so lots of things have not gotten read. But to be fair, this arc of Batman, while I think it's very fun, I've enjoyed it immensely. I think it's there. I have no knocks against it, and certainly against the art. I think the art is, that you're seeing some top-notch, top-tier stuff that is incredibly enticing and exciting. Overall, it's just been kind of I'm gonna read it every week, but I'm just not in a hurry to read it because it's just gonna sit there and be there waiting on me when I get there.
So there's a Nightwing moment in this book that I predict you're going to appreciate.
Nice.
In fact, I think everybody will appreciate it, but for some reason, I almost screenshotted it, and I was like, nah, I don't want to spoil it because they probably hadn't read it. I just got.
Did it come out?
Yeah. I was coming to boo Caleb for a second, but he saved himself on his wrap up of the current Batman.
That's fair. I'm not as in love with it as you are, but just because you're not in love with something doesn't mean you don't like it. I think it's great. I would kick it at the weekends. I don't want to move.
You redeemed yourself. I didn't have to boo you. We're good.
Now I'm curious though, because Nightwing is amazing and has the best ass in comics, so I need to go check this out.
It's a great, not to say it's a great character. It's just a little character moment that it's like, okay, the artwork's laid out really well. The character moment's really cool. It's just a great character moment.
And if he decides to wake up in bed with Moon Knight, who am I to judge? Make that happen.
Moon Knight.
Until I know different.
Nightwing.
Well, Jason Aaron's not done yet. Who's to say what?
Yeah, right.
Pick up that hammer.
Oh my God!
I totally meant Midnighter right there. That was a spoof. That was a mess up on my part. I'm together this morning. Speaking of getting it together, that's a new book that I was going to talk about for a short stack. There's a new series from Image from Sina Grace, Omar Spahi, Jenny D. Fine, and Max Strubble that I grabbed this week. It's called, in fact, Getting It Together. I wasn't sure what to expect with this. I love Sina Grace's work. I've read a lot of it. Good stuff. From the way I was leading into this, it was like, hey, how Friends and how shows like, How I Met Your Mother have almost no people of color and no queer people, and it's all just a bunch of white straight folks sitting around talking about the problems all the time. And how the fuck do you do that in a city like New York? Like that doesn't make sense. Well, this takes those kind of criticisms of sitcom culture, and it changes it. So this book is arguably like a sitcom. It's arguably like a a group of friends who all kind of follow each other around, very much in the vein of a show like Friends, but it is a very queer book. It's messy. It's very brown. There are lots of people of color. It's fun. So the first issue was a very high quality. Not to mention that they don't pull back from talking about sex or sexual proclivities that aren't just missionary position. They get into some detail there, and so I thought it was fun. I like seeing this. I'm a fan of shows like Tales from the City or Looking that really get into the world as it really is, how everybody's not of the same kind of bracketed identity. And so this was fun. So if you are looking for that kind of thing, if you're looking for like a sitcom vibe, but that actually reflects the world, or how it is, folks that are diverse and of broad swaths of culture, check out Getting It Together. And then I only have two stories that I was going to champion in this little small bit, but there's another series it's ongoing, that I've been hit or miss on as far as whether or not I can really tell myself, oh, I'm enjoying this, or I'm just liking certain things about it. But the series is called The Marked, and it's story by David Hine and Brian Haberland with art by Brian Haberland. Long story short of this, it's two factions of modern day goth dueling wizards who put spells through tattoos on their bodies, and that's what where the Marked comes in. And they're the main society's fraction, fractured into factions. There's lots of betrayal, and the art has a very digital vibe to it. And I don't like, knowing Craig, he would look at this and just be like, throw it out the window. He wouldn't like it at all, because it's very layered. It's very computer generated in some sense, and so knowing some of the artists that Craig has disliked in the past, I don't think he would dig this. And
so funny enough is I was on this book.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah, I read the first 3 or 4 issues and fell off of it, but it didn't have anything to do with the art. I actually thought the art was good in it. I love the concept of the story, but much like you said, it's I enjoyed the concept more than the actual execution of the story.
See, that surprises me, because I would have thought that this would not have been your thing. I'm trying to remember who the artist is that this reminds me of, that you because we were having this conversation about 2 years ago. I mean, it's been a while.
Copiel.
Who?
Copiel?
Yes.
No, yeah, that's him.
That's it. And it reminds me a lot of that, and so that actually surprises me.
Well, Copiel's art now is much better than it used to be, so his newer stuff doesn't bother me like his old stuff used to.
Okay, that's fair.
So, yeah.
But yeah, and then last but not least, I guess I can say, just to round it out for a solid 3, the next book on my list that I haven't gotten to yet is Champions Outlawed, the new number 1. I love Champions. I love that book. I'm a huge fan of Miss Marvel and all these.
Did you just put a book on your short stack that you haven't read yet?
I sure did. Remember how I said midterms next week? A bitch is tired. But no, it's written by Al Ewing. So,
yeah,
it's Simone DeMeo and Al Ewing. So it's gonna be good. And it's the Champions. So I'm gonna like it. He
highly recommends this book he hasn't read yet, folks.
Yeah, if I don't like it, I'll lie to you. That's just who I am as a person. You've come to expect this from me. Don't act like you haven't.
I'm just going to skip the short stack. How about that?
That's fair. That's fine.
You're not going to tell us about 3 books you haven't read, Craig?
No, I'm going to skip the 3 books I have not read this week.
Your honesty is appreciated.
I mean, you were honest. You just tried to sneak it past the censors.
Look, it's not American. We don't do censorship on this show. Unless it's unilateral. That's where it comes from. But all right, well, so fun stuff all around. I'm really looking forward to actually getting to read some of these books on my stack, and that includes 2 out of 3 of the books that are that are on Matt's list. So, lots of stuff out there. I would love if everybody who listened to this show came to our Facebook page and they dropped their short stacks. If you have read 3 comics in the past week, the past month, hell, the past year that we haven't spoken about, or maybe we have spoken about it, but you want to wax poetic, you want to opine on it, do that on our Facebook group. Come see us, because I'm always curious about what everyone else is reading, because we all have different reading tastes. But I say that in the caveat that it's all pretty much direct market reading tastes, if you know what I mean. Like I pick up a few more books from, Fantagraphics and stuff. Matt picks up a few, like he goes old school. He likes to read a ton of stuff, Conan-esque. A lot of the stuff out of Europe from the 90s he'll pull in. And Craig is just throwing darts at a wall. That man will read anything that he thinks is good, and most of the time it is.
Not annuals.
But except annuals. Or anthologies that are
yes.
So, but anyway, but we all pretty much are bracketed with that. So I love it when folks come on there and on our Facebook group and they're like, hey, well, this manga that I've been reading is dope, or hey, this bande dessinée out of France, come check that out. Or hey, like, dude, the funnies came out today. Did you see what Mandrake the Magician did? That shit was insane. I don't even know if Mandrake is still going right now. Who knows? But yeah, come tell us about what's going on in the world of comics on our Facebook group, because why wouldn't you? Talk about it. That's what we're here for. What we're also here for is the creepy, the crawly, the eepy, and the spooky, because it is October. And because it's October, look, it's getting close to Halloween. I love this time of year. When we were getting together to decide what book we should talk about this week, we were kind of talking about doing the Batman 100, just because everybody's busy and we know we would all really dig that book, and kind of a culminating moment. But then Matt was like, no, children, sit down. It's story time. There's a book coming out this week that you're going to read and you're going to like it. And I mean, maybe, but we should definitely talk about this on the show, because it's in the spirit and the theme of the month that we're in, or, really just the year that we're in, because there's nothing about 2020 that hasn't been a horror story. Just terribly insane, scary moments. And
Matt slammed the gavel, and we're
he did.
And we are now reading books he says.
Oh man.
I actually like this though, because it's one less decision we have to make. So like we make suggestions and then Matt tells us why we're wrong. It's pretty awesome.
That is his job.
We got together this week and we decided to read, and I'm very excited that we did, The Legend of the Swamp Thing, Halloween Spectacular. This was fun. It's a 48-page book. It is an anthology, much to Craig's chagrin. But it's it's not. It's kind of one of those things that it works really well for a book like Swamp Thing, which right now doesn't have an ongoing series, because you can just, you throw something together and it's got a long, like, people love this character, and that really comes through in books like this, because the stories are kind of all over the place, but you can find a connecting thread. And I feel like that's what they did here. So just before I get into it, what did you guys think about the collection?
I really dug it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even though it was an anthology, I still liked it. I enjoyed the way they tied the stories together.
It was neat.
If you're gonna do an anthology, and I don't mean like a book, like no.
Stop him, Caleb. Caleb, can you stop him?
I don't mean like something that our buddies Wells and Dalton did, but if you're doing an anthology of a character, have a common thread through it, so I can tie it all together, and I was good with that.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, and that's true of like short story collections too. I'm a big fan of people like Buddy Norton and his books, especially like The Magic of the Swamp and stuff like that, which could technically tie into this just by the name alone. But it does that. All the stories have different people in them, but there is a uniting thread running through them. And I think you're seeing that more and more in short story collections and anthologies, both in and out of comics. So, which is, it's nice because it does make a sort of flow. It's not so choppy. You have some idea of kind of what's ahead, or where the collection is going. So,
Yeah, give me the child telling the stories to the witch so that she doesn't cook him sooner.
well, and look, like the Arabian Nights. I mean, that's old, like goes back all the way to there. Like here's these 1001 tales that all connect in some way, but are all unique in their own right. So that's not an
Right.
uncommon thing. There's a lot of historical, um, literary truth to that concept. So, but this book does that. This book kind of bookends with the same figures, right? Like this the opening story to this is about a young man who he gets lost in the swamp, and he's in Virginia. It's the Great Dismal Swamp, around about October 31st. So I'm not sure what day that is. Wink, wink, nod, nod. But yeah, he's lost, and the cops are out looking for him. They've got the bloodhounds out. They're trying to find it. And he's the boy is he's lost and he's scared and he's alone. And as he approaches, he starts walking through the muck in the swamp. He finds this willow tree and just for some reason decides to lay down right then and there and take a nap under this willow tree. And you know probably not a good idea in a world where magic and swamp creatures don't exist, but especially in this one, it's almost like a siren. He's being enticed to fall asleep. And as he's falling asleep, the vines kind of creep up and they wrap around this kid. Um, and I should say the opening and closing stories are written by Ram V, and they're drawn by Mike Perkins with Andy Troy on the colors and Aditya Bidikar on the letters. Gorgeous art. It, like, nailed the tone of the story completely. But so as this boy falls asleep and the vines are all wrapping around him, Swamp Thing starts kind of lumbering through the muck and the mire, and he comes up and he's just, he addresses the willow tree. It's basically Grandmother Willow, but not the friendly Pocahontas kind. And she's just like, look, I'm just going to protect him. I just want to hold him close. I want to wrap myself around him. I'm going to keep him with me forever. That's the only way to keep him safe, is to hold him here. Well, we all know what that means. That means like the sucking the life force out of the kid and is going to die. And this is not a unique moment apparently in this tree's life, because underneath in the deep roots of Grandmother Willow are all these skeletons and bones of other people who have suffered the same fate. But Swamp Thing's not going to let that happen to the kid. So through a mix of diplomacy and or brute strength, he is able to coax the willow tree into giving up the child, to where the child delivers the boy, you know, arguably safe and somewhat sound, back to the authorities. And Swamp Thing goes back to just kind of sit and discuss matters of swamp things, of life in the swamp, of sacrifice, and of the green, this essence, this force that drives Swamp Thing, and the source from which he derives his power. And so she's like, okay, I gave up the child. I need you to tell me these stories, much like Craig said, a very Arabian Nights kind of thing. And so he does. And so through the book, there's a series of different shorts, 6 to 8 pages roughly, where they go all throughout history and all over the world, to really drive home the connection and the timelessness of the green, of the source of power that has really been a continuing thread throughout all of Earth's history. And it's not localized, it's everywhere. It's this almost universal planetary force. The first book opens up in Britannia, where the Romans are, they're spreading their empire. And they're, in this particular story, there's a young, yeah, basically a boy comes back. This kind of common idea of the lost child, comes running into the Romans camps, and he's like, hey, like, our forces got destroyed obliterated. Like something's out there. It's the Britons are like they're wielding some type of force that we've never seen before. But it's not only that. Like there's been a traitor in our midst. Just, you know, a Roman has kind of gone native, quote unquote, so to speak, and is he's in league with the Britons now. He's taken on their gods. He's decried Rome. He's fighting for them. You know, he's dressing himself in stag horns and in ropes, and in vines, and he's kind of forsaken what we understand as civilized Roman society. And you know, Caesar's not having this. He's like, no, number one, you try to take out my forces. Number two, you don't just get to walk away. And so they go to kind of head off this problem, this fight, and they find the guy. And you know, the guy's explaining, he's like, no, I'm not betraying you. I'm ushering in something new. There's something new here. There's a mix of the old and the mix of the future that are culminating in this moment. And you know, look, just come here tonight, come to this spot, come hang out with me right here, and I'll show you what I mean. Of course, if you're familiar with the area, that spot is Stonehenge. And you know, as the Romans approach and they see this guy, he just basically starts telling them like there's something stronger than Rome. There's something more important than the Bretons. There's something, you know, that is more powerful than anything we can fathom. And you've encroached upon it. I've encroached upon it. The Bretons have encroached upon it. And you've broken the laws of the green. And you know, now you've got to pay that price, and nothing but horror awaits you here. And he, like, these priests behind him basically slit his throat, and all of these vines branch out from everywhere and turn him essentially into something akin to Swamp Thing. Like whether it is the Swamp Thing or not, who can say? But it's something very much in that vein. And this might actually be, as far as historical canon goes, the earliest that we've ever seen this inception of the green take form in Swamp Thing, which is kind of a really cool concept. Like if that is the case, then this is a moment in that character's canon that is highly important, and you know, at least to the way that we perceive him as a universal force. There's a few more great stories in this. I'm not going to take up time talking about them all. And I'm sure that we all have our own standouts, and I'm curious to see if there's any overlap to that. The standout for me, and I'll just kind of go off first on this, was a story about it kind of came up in the middle of the book, and it takes place just after, you know, arguably towards the end, but just after World War II. And the story is called No Sign of the Enemy. And I, like, full disclosure, I know the writer Julian Lytle, and he's a good dude. I met him through the EOC community, as I've met many of my friends. But even if I didn't have that connection to him, this would be my favorite story in this book. And that's like, I'm not just shooting shit. And you know, there's probably little to no chance that Julian is going to listen to this. So it you know, does me no service to, you know, blow smoke, but it is true. This book to me was my absolute favorite, in no small part because of John Timms, who's the artist of this book. Gabe Elada did the colors, and you know, Mr. Clayton Clowes, who letters everything worth lettering. I shouldn't say that because there's a lot of great letterers out there, but he's certainly top of his field, his game. So in 1945 in the South Pacific, there is a Japanese soldier who has gotten separated. He's in charge of kind of watching over this small island, and it's been about 987 days since he was stationed in this spot. He's a young man. He started kind of fashioning his own weapons, much in the vein of like Green Arrow. When he gets lost, if you watch the Arrowverse stuff, you know, he's hunting his own food. He's completely self-sufficient because he has to be, and he's waiting on orders. And it's almost like that moment in the movie Dances with Wolves, where you know, he's a soldier. He knows his duty, and he will not abandon his post for any reason. He will wait until the empire gives him his orders. And bruh's gonna be waiting for a hot minute. Like, he's gonna be waiting for a good while, because as we all know, World War II does not turn out well for the Japanese. Really, it doesn't turn out well for anybody, but specifically for the Japanese Empire, it kind of breaks them. You know, he's sitting here, he's waiting. You know, 8 to 10 years go by and a letter washes up, and you know, he finds it, and it's telling the story of what happened in Nagasaki. It's telling the story about the United States dropping the nuclear bombs, and he is so convinced of the Empire's might and in their inability to fail that he just dismisses this as enemy propaganda. Like, he doesn't believe it. And he continues to just live there and to monitor this post. You know, the second or third decade later, he's an old, decrepit man. He's still wearing remnants of his uniform, of course, that have become tattered and broken and rotted throughout the years. And as he's kind of exploring, you know, throughout time, he starts to branch out, right? Like you would do. He starts exploring more of the island, and he kind of comes through the brush in this one spot, and he sees a little village, you know, folks tending to rice fields and dogs and a group of people, and he's so confused, and he's convinced that this is the enemy. Like, he's gone insane at this point. And he starts to fortify his location. He starts to set up, and he's basically getting ready to go to war. All throughout this book, throughout the decades that he's been living here, he has started talking to a small plant in a shoe, and it's this little red flower that speaks back. And of course, we all know this is the green, right? Like, this is the seed of the swamp thing. That is just, you know, as insane as it is to think that you're talking to a plant. The plant is acknowledging that this guy, like, the plant talking is not the most insane happening here. This guy's deteriorating mentally. He's going insane. So as you know, decades later, when he thinks the enemy's encroaching and is fortifying his position, he starts to just, you know, cut down all the trees in his areas, and he kind of convinces himself that he has to burn out the island in order to in order to stop this. Like, he's just going full on kamikaze. He's going to torch everything. And the flower blooms at the end of the story, and it becomes the swamp thing. And he stops him. He stops him from burning all the people and from emoliating the village. And he just, you know, kind of localizes it to just our friend. And so for this guy, the war is finally over. Best, like, to me, hands down, was my favorite story in this book. The way it looked, the way it read, was absolutely great. I loved, you know, I like stories that creatively wear their inspiration on their sleeve. I like books like, you know, you think of stories like Castaway, where he talks to the Wilson, the volleyball, or you think about stories like I said, Dances with Wolves. I think this pulls hard from those, but why wouldn't it? Those are, you know, award-winning, beloved narratives that really speak to isolation and, you know, interiority of the figures. And I think that's what a good Swamp Thing story is about. It is about the isolation and the interiority of nature, of the swamp, of one figure being alone with the most terrifying aspect of humanity, and that's losing our own minds. What did you guys think?
Yeah, this was actually my favorite story in the anthology as well.
Was it? Nice.
Yeah, and again, like you said, this was you know, we've all read the story before or seen the movie of a Japanese soldier stuck on an island and doesn't know the outcome of World War II. That's not a new trope, but it was done well. And in the descent into madness, or perhaps madness, where he's talking to the flower, but, you know, it turns out the flower really is talking back. So yeah, it was my favorite.
Yeah, it was strong. I liked it too.
I love that at the end of the story, he's wearing a bamboo loincloth. So I thought that was a nice touch. Almost like the wind chimes of destiny.
Well, and then, you know, like, it also gave you, like, you know, 2 to 3 weeks, can't remember exactly which. And then as time went on, you know, it was like 2 or 3 decades, can't remember which. You know, I mean, as the time got longer, you know, there's a big difference between 2 and 3 weeks or 2 and 3 decades.
Right. You know, he has no concept of how the world has changed around him.
That's right.
And you have to think, I mean, like 2 or 3 decades later, you're talking about the 70s. You know, you think about how much society changed from 1946, 1945 to the 1970s. Even if he had been rescued, I don't know that he would have been able to cope. So it was almost the only. It's almost the only option. He could not cope with abandoning the world that he knew. And it's kind of sad because the world that he knew was not a good world, and in no small part to the people that he thought that were the good guys, the people he thought were protecting him. And that's the broader story, which isn't really spoken about much in the narrative itself in this book. But I mean, you add that contextualization to it, and it becomes even more tragic. Were there any other stories in the book that really stood out to you guys?
That was a big one for me.
One of my favorite was the first and the last story, which was, the beginning and the end of the same story. Mm-hmm. That's the one I like the best. I like, the rest. It was interesting. All but that story hinged on the timeless elemental fact of the character. And I can't help but wonder if the writers were given that direction. Seems kind of weird that just by coincidence they'd all do these timeless elemental stories without giving direction to do so.
I'm sure they were based on how it came together.
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah. But I just really like the traditional North American Swamp Thing stories, and the artwork as well was really, really good.
Yeah, the art was really strong on the story you're talking about, the bookend story.
Oh, dude, it's Mike Perkins.
It was, and specifically, it had a very horror haunting element to it. But
it was
the rest, it
was Wrightson-esque.
Wrightson-esque. The color scheme of it reminded me of Liam Sharp heavily. The really dark shadow.
I can see that.
Reminded me of Liam Sharp's shadow and colors. But the rest of the artwork was definitely. Tinian, the Tinian story there, the artwork in Tinian story was great. This one is just much darker and had much of a horror feel to it than the rest of them did to me.
Has Liam Sharp done a Swamp Thing before? Because if not, I want that now.
I am not sure.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I don't think so. He wasn't in the Swamp Thing Christmas book that Fabok did. I don't believe. So it's funny you were talking about the Tinian story, and just in the spirit of fairness, and I think it's fair to critique everything. That was some of my favorite art in the book, and it was surprising because, like you said, it's very bright, it's very luminescent, using a lot of neon colors in that. And I want to say the artist in that story was Christian Ward, but even though it was some of my favorite art, it was my least favorite story in this book. And not because of the actual story. And this is one of those cases to where the little details matter. The lettering in this story was abhorrent. It is abhorrent.
I
like that. We don't get negative on this show very often, and I don't like to, because why? There's only a limited number of hours in the day, so why talk about things you don't like? But if we're talking about the overall connection and the different stories in this. If you're the letters in this story are all about 2 sizes too small. I felt like I needed to go find a magnifying glass to figure out what the fuck was happening in the narration. And what's stupid is they put it the right size, at the size that the letters should have been when it was the dialogue. But in any narration box, no matter how much space it took up, no matter how big or small the narration was, they shrunk down the lettering to a 9 font. And I realized, look, I'm 33 now and my eyes aren't going that bad, but come on, you could have used a 12 font in this. It just completely took me out of my enjoyment of this story.
It happens. It happens when you don't notice lettering when it's done right.
Right.
But when it's wrong, it will mess you up.
Yeah, and that's the case in this one. And so I just want to, in case that we are ever accused of just being the people who only talk about things we like and we don't give a fair shake and a fair criticism to things, I think when you see something like that, you got to talk about it. You got to call it out. this story would not have been one that I would have like chosen to speak about on my own book. If we were breaking this story up to talk about, like, as far as our books of the week, this one would not have made the cut. And it sucks too, because the art is gorgeous, and Tynan's a solid storyteller. Like, you read the story and it's just like, God, man, the lettering did you no favors, and it's by a reputable letterer. Like, it's by a letterer who gets a lot of work and who is a strong letterer. So I don't know what happened here. I don't know if it was just a formatting thing or what, but I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, now that you're talking about it, Tynan did the that story, The Woods, which had a lot of Swamp Thing vibe to it. Now that we've discussed this, I really want a Tynan, Liam Sharp Swamp Thing series.
I think we just
somebody make that happen, please.
I think we need just a Swamp Thing series in general. It really does suck that we're not getting an ongoing, which I think people are kind of scared to do ongoings with Swamp Thing, because, I mean, what do you think of when you think of Swamp Thing? You think of Alan Moore, you think of Bernie Wrightson. Your
Lemire did a pretty good run on him.
Who?
Didn't Lemire do one in New 52? Wasn't that his?
Did
or
he
am
do Swamp
I
Thing?
mistaken? Somebody. I feel like it was Lemire.
I know he did.
Scott
Maybe I'm
Snyder
wrong.
did.
Oh, Snyder did. That's right. It was pretty solid. It just didn't last very long.
Lemire did Animal Man, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Lemire did Animal Man, and Snyder did Swamp Thing.
But no, dude, I would love an ongoing Swamp Thing book, and if they would do it in a way that they don't have to do the do it like this, do one and done stories, but do it in an ongoing fashion. I think that would be incredible. I don't know why we don't have one, but I am in love with these Swamp Thing anthologies, because we've gotten a few of them that were really good the past few years. Like I said, the Swamp Thing Winter anthology that they came out with a few years ago that had the Tom King Jason Fabok story in it was knuckin' futz. Like, that was good stuff. And they actually put out a hardcover of that, if I'm not mistaken.
To no one's surprise, I did not pick that up.
Well, I was also glad that this was only 48 pages too. Like the 100-page anthologies that they put out from time to time, arguably a little bit too much. This was short, sweet, and to the point, and I really enjoyed it. So, if you have not picked this up, go hunt down your local comic shop, find out a place you can get it. I think we all agree that it was a good time. No?
Yep.
Yeah. So bring it home, have fun with it. Let us know what your favorite story was. I'm really going to be pushing that, because I want our social media to become more active. I would love if more people, besides the host of the show, posted, and they do. We have some great people, so that's not a knock. But we have some, there's the same voices. I would like it to grow. I'd like to become more of a robust conversation. So I'm challenging you. If you're listening to this show, the gauntlet has been thrown down.
There you go.
So, well, Craig, what did you read this week that you enjoyed?
I read a book. I believe it originally came out in 1963. Tales of Suspense, number 39 by Marvel Comics. It was written by Stan Lee and Larry Lieber, arts by Don Heck, and letters by Art Simic. So stop me if you've heard the story before, but Playboy inventor millionaire Anthony Stark has refined the use of transistors and weapons. When he goes to Vietnam, where he can be on site to help the South Vietnamese army in case his new weapons falter, so he can fix them on the spot, he wanders through the desert and sets off a booby trap. He survives the explosion, but the shrapnel is dangerously close to his heart. The North Vietnamese army finds him, and they demand that he builds a weapon. In return, they will have their best surgeons operate on him to remove the shrapnel. Of course, Anthony Stark, being the smartest man alive, sees through their lies and determines that if they could save him, they already would. have, and would be forcing him to build weapons anyways. So of course he agrees and starts building himself an iron suit that he can put his transistors in, which will cause the shrapnel to stay away from his heart. He, with the help of a professor that is also captured from the South Vietnamese army, they build the armor. He defeats the bad guys, and what happens next? Come back in issue number 40 of Tales of Suspense. This was, what surprised me rereading this, because it's been years since I read this story, was how close, even though they modernized it for Iron Man, the movie, how close it actually fell in line to the original story here. The art's great. The story's, it is what it is. It's a product of its time. They even give you a warning at the beginning of it to, hey, this is reprinted as it originally was. And, you might find it a little offensive by today's standards, but hey, we were at war with those commie bastards back then. So
how did you read this?
I read it. This actually picked it up in a facsimile edition.
Okay.
Which, I love these things. I buy them every time they come out. I don't know why I don't buy the dollar books, but I love the facsimile ones. But yeah, it has two, because, Tales of Suspense wasn't strictly speaking an Iron Man book.
Mm-hmm.
As numbered, this is number 39 and it's the first appearance. It actually has two smaller stories in the back of it. It's just fun to go back and read these old stories in their original print with the original ads in them and all of that.
It really is.
Yeah.
I like those.
Where you're not flipping through your, 60-year-old comic, tearing it up to read it.
Damn, how do you read comics?
Well, some of those old 60-year-old comics, it doesn't take much to tear them up.
He's got his badger claws out.
No,
I'm with you.
I turn the pages with my fake Wolverine claws.
Yeah. I was about to say, you only reading 60-year-old annuals with anger? Is that how that works?
Yes, that's what it is. No, because 60 years ago, the annuals actually meant something to the ongoing story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God damn it.
The recent Wonder Woman did that, but that's not what we're talking about. No, I don't disagree with you, because at least for me, it's I think for all of us, these facsimile editions are a window into history. Because like you said, you're not just getting the story. I mean, number one, look, Heck's art is he's not quite Wally Wood for me, but he's up there, like as far as the old school Marvel Bulletin bullpen goes. I mean, number one is obviously Kirby, but Heck is up there.
It would be hard to open this book and open a Kirby book and not tell somebody who did which and tell them to figure out which one was Kirby and which one was Heck.
I'm trying to remember in this story, did Heck do a lot of like the crackle, that Kirby and stuff? I forget if he adopted that.
Not noticeably so, but
yeah.
there was a lot of just the way Iron Man's drawn and stuff. You would, you could look at it and easily see that Kirby could have done it.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, the Marvel House style, of course, but.
And he was the master, and you look at the things that Kirby made happen with his art. A lot of people followed him. Like, he set a trend. You had, at least as far as Marvel goes, you had people who were of the school of Kirby, or you had people who were of the school of Ditko. And you can tell how the house branched out from that.
Right.
But they certainly they went for that mold, because all of them, whether or not they, you think of like creator own stuff, all of them wanted to do what those two men did. Like, they all wanted to solidify themselves in history the way those two men did.
Oh, for sure. And one of the great things about this book is that it's the iron suit, so it's the gray suit, like you see in the movie, Iron Man version 1.
Mhm.
And then, I know in issue number 40, he's in his red and gold suit. So
the tin can didn't last very long.
In one issue.
The Mach 1.
The Mach 1, that's right. So yeah, it's so much fun for me to go back and read these old books. And I'm hoping that other people will do so. I know Matt reads a lot of the Dollar or True Believer books for the same reason.
Yep.
It's fun to see these things. And, again, unless you're buying the omnibus or whatever and going back and reading them, people probably aren't going back and reading Tales of Suspense 39 from their collection.
Oh, you'd be stupid too. I mean, like I said, even taking out the idea of it might be worth something. Like you said, the pages are old, they're brittle, and if
That's right.
like you can, for $10 a month, you can get a Comixology account or a Marvel Unlimited account, and you can read all the stories anyway. Like, why would you mess up your tome of history to do that? That's like,
right.
even if you're not somebody who, like I said, you're not trying to like sell this to retire on, it's still, you can't fondle the thing and handle it without it dilapidating and ruining it forever. You don't fondle your comics? I fondle mine. Little
All right. Which comics did you guys fondle this week?
Matt, you want to go first, or you want me to go?
The comic that I read this week that I'd like to talk about
fondled
is from Marvel, Marauders number 13. This is actually part 5 of 22 of the X of Swords storyline. Are y'all on the storyline?
I am. It's on my stack to read. So, but spoil away, buddy.
Are y'all going through and reading all of the X of Swords stuff? Are y'all chasing that down? Is that what you're asking?
I'm reading the ones that I'm on. So if I'm still on the book, I'll read it. If not, I guess I'll just skip that chapter.
My plan is to read the X of Swords 22 issue series.
Gotcha.
This issue stood out to me, and I'm talking about this. This was all about Storm, and Storm has not been utilized near enough, in my opinion, in the current timeline. She's kind of used here and there. Marauders is where she's had the Marauders series is where she's had a bigger presence, thankfully. But overall, man, I keep saying, man, I wish somebody would really pick up on a Storm storyline and make her more prevalent. And because she's such a good female character, she's a strong leader, and watching her, go Omega is something I really dig on as well. This issue is written by Vita Alea. The art is by Matteo Loli. Colorist is Edgar Delgado. The story here is on the X of Swords storyline. Oh boy, I'm trying to synopsize this, which is it's a Hickman story, so that's challenging.
Good luck.
Otherworld is attempting to invade, cross the gate to invade the terrestrial world, specifically through Krakoa, and the Krakoans, led by the X-Men, obviously, have been tasked to collect 13 swords, very specific, special swords to battle the impending invasion. So in this particular issue, Storm has been selected to collect a sword, the sword from Wakanda. That was the first sword that Wakandans forged in their history. So she goes to Wakanda to politely ask for the sword, to T'Challa is not there. He's off with the Avengers, doing the Avengers shenanigans. So the Queen of Wakanda tells her she has to wait for Black Panther to come back. She cannot turn over this relic of Wakandan history to her. So the issue is about Storm having a long conversation with Shuri about why she needs this sword and why it should be turned over to her. It's a surprisingly, there's quite a few pages of just dialogue between those two, and it's surprisingly compelling to read the conversation between these two characters. So Storm eventually decides she's going to have to act like she's playing nice and is going to wait for Black Panther to come back, but she doesn't have time for that. There's way too much at risk. The Krakoa and the Earth itself is at risk. She needs these swords. She uses her knowledge of the Wakandan, I guess you would call it the security system that protects these swords, that she was detailed on while she was married to the Black Panther. She uses that to bypass and get access to these swords. So we get to see Storm, do some borderline Omega level stuff, because anyone would assume, the security system designed by Wakandans is pretty epic, you would say. And so watching her, just go full on and non-lethally gain access to this relic with the idea of taking it was really cool. So, I really appreciated this, because this is some of what I've been waiting for. Is just a little like a toe dip into what I've been waiting for someone to write Storm with her best character traits. And this touched on that a little bit. She's very, and what I mean by that specifically, she's very confident, but she's also very calm in her confidence. Mm-hmm. And it's on full display here. She's she's not going to Wakanda and angrily arguing her case. She never gets hot about it. She calmly and politely states her case and then goes into action when, her pleas go unanswered, I guess you would say. And that's really cool. It's really cool to see that kind of cool confidence and competence out of a character like this, because you have plenty of instances where somebody's trying to argue their case and their blood gets up and people start yelling at each other. And in Storm's character history, she's never been that person. And that's what, I really like. One of the things I should say I really like about the character. So with all that being said, if you have a passing interest in the character of Storm, I highly recommend, catching up with the series and get on this one. I liked this. This is the first 5 issues of the X of Swords storyline. I like this one the best, definitely.
So I have a question about this, because again, I haven't caught up on it yet, but does she have a problem with them sending her to go to Wakanda? Like, of course you want me to go deal with my ex-husband type
Absolutely
thing?
not. No,
okay.
she does not have a problem with it at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
For anybody else,
of course.
For anybody else, that would have to be awkward, right? Like, hey, go to your ex's house and ask for your antiques. See if they'll give you these
ask
antiques.
him if he'll give you the antiques from.
Matter of fact, if you can sit down and have tea with his new wife and explain why you need her decor, that would be great. Actually, his sister is going to be there too, and that's not ever going to be awkward.
Yeah,
Storm's just like,
I think Storm's level of confidence is so high. I don't think awkward is in her wheelhouse.
No, for that character, especially not being written by the people who are writing her right now. I think a lot of people who write Storm historically, they forget that not only has she been a queen, she's been a goddess, and she has a regal, almost deitish aura about her. and she.
Well,
has to be written that way.
it's not really almost deitish. It is deitish because she was worshipped as a goddess as a child.
Yeah.
So I would think that it'd still a little bit of confidence in somebody. If you worship as a god as a child, your formative years.
And it's with her, it's warranted, right? Like it's not a situation where they deify.
Well, it's not abused.
Right. But what I was going to say is it's not a situation where they have deified somebody who like a random like person who can't do anything. She was deified because she controls the elements. Like she actually has the powers of a god.
Deified a random person that can't do anything. Yeah, that would be strange.
And they have all the confidence of mediocrity, where she actually is just a badass. And so I think that's a lot of writers forget to do that, and it fills me with joy to know that that's not happening here. Because there have been a lot of people who write her as almost diminutive, and that bugs
or
me.
Just another token female character. I mean, a great example of what I'm talking about is in the original X-Men movies. I mean, she was just another token female character. I mean, really underserved that character in the movies.
Hey, what happens to a toad when it gets struck by lightning?
Oh, fuck you.
But they just need to give her mohawk. She's got to have her mohawk. Mohawk Storm is the only storm.
Oh man, I got no complaints about the mohawk.
It's awesome, right?
Yeah, it's metal.
I mean, just the idea of an African goddess queen punk rock icon, like that. If you look up the word epic in the dictionary, it should have a picture of Mohawk Storm. Goddess queen punk rock icon. It gets no better than that.
You can't argue it.
Who can put a blizzard in your pants? So,
lightning in your pants.
It's
yeah.
It's good to see her back. Like I like it when she's written well. So when you said that you're following the 22 issues, are you saying that are you chasing them down? Are you getting all the single issues? Or are you waiting on like a collection?
Oh no, I'm reading them as they come out.
Are you? Yeah. I thought about doing that because I am interested in the story, but I'm not. I'm gonna wait until it gets a collected edition, because I think you're gonna have to know what happens on all the issues to really understand what Hickman's doing, because he's got his like spider web of plot on the wall. But I do not want to chase down all these issues, and I'm by no means
I think
on all these titles.
I think the big risk in doing that is I get the distinct feeling that once this storyline is over, everything is going to change in this Krakoan storyline.
Yeah.
So if you're waiting, you run a big risk on once this storyline is done, you're going to need to read that shit if you're going to stay current with the X-Men storyline.
Yeah. I won't put it past Marvel to put out like a recap one shot somewhere. They've done that before. They did that with Hickman's Avengers. Before they
I'm not arguing that it won't happen. I'm just saying that the time between that coming out, you know what I'm saying? If you're going to wait, then you're going to have to delay the Krakoan storyline as well to get that read. That's the risk. I wouldn't want to take that risk. I'm just digging this Krakoan storyline way too much.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you keep me up to date on it. I don't have the strength of will to dig through all 22 issues at the moment. You can be the Krakoa translator.
Well, I can't guarantee the quality.
I was going to say he just left it for you to explain Hickman to him.
Yeah, cannot guarantee the quality or the accuracy of my translations.
It'll be about like Krakoa speaking to you. Maybe a little bit more clarity than that. No, it's going to be good stuff. And I picked up the Wolverine issue, and Jesus.
I just want to be clear. Is this considered an event?
I think so. Just
in case I need to know for our end of the year awards.
So I think it's one of those things. No, I don't think it's an event. I think it's a crossover.
Oh, here we go.
It's well,
Crossovers are events.
they can be. It's not line wide, right? Like this isn't affecting what happens in Daredevil. It's not, which is it's stupid that it's not, but it's not affecting what's happening in the Avengers, the Fantastic Four. It's not tying into that.
Well, that's because the army hasn't crossed over yet. That's the thing. The army crosses over. It affects the entire planet.
You would think that. So
if you're reading it, you would.
Yeah.
But, see, I will consider it an event.
It's because it's an event. 2 to 1 is an event.
Okay. I got outvoted. Democracy has spoken. And we'll let that.
Well, I know. I think it's interesting the difference in what we consider events. For Caleb, it has to be a line-wide thing.
Yeah, if it's just within one editorial house and one thing, I consider it a crossover.
Well, then we need to change our awards to crossover or event.
We can. I mean, that's a simple thing.
I'm not changing shit.
All right. Well, y'all remember how we? Oh, I was gonna give a shout out to Vita Ayala. She also had a story in the Swamp Thing book that was really, really good. One of the better ones, I would say. Everything about it was fun. So check out more Vita over in that the Swamp Thing special we spoke about, because it's Halloween, and I have kind of talked myself into at least making the valid attempt to really dive into the horror for the month, to really dive into the spooky and the scary, and to get some really fun stories. I was at our local comic shop over in Sherwood. I went to Kapow, and Kapow does this really cool thing. Number one, if you're looking for books on the cheap and you're in Central Arkansas, go check out their dollar bin because it's epic. It's huge, and there's all kinds of $1 comics. But also, they had a little bitty table sitting right in the middle of the store, right before you get to the checkout, and it's got a little sign on it, right, that says $5 trades and graphic novels, which is ridiculous, right? Like that's insane. And so a book caught my eye, and it was because the cover of it just had in these giant old school creepy and eerie style lettering the word terror on it. And as I got closer, it said Tales of Terror, and the majority of the book is a big block, a big image, black and white, but it's just dripped in red. And as I picked it up and got a little closer, I'm like, okay, this is terror, this is horror. Maybe I can read this. It's $5, no big deal. I looked at it, and it's Eduardo Risso. It's an anthology series called Eduardo Risso's Tales of Terror. 11 shocking stories of suspense. It's an anthology that he put out circa 2007 from Dynamite. And I'd never seen this before. And if you've listened to the show, and I know my booze over here absolutely know this, I love me some Eduardo Risso. I think he's amazing. He has put out nothing that I don't like looking at. The stories were written by Carlos Trio, illustration on some of the books by Maria Barucci, which I'm not really sure. No, sorry, translation by Maria Barucci. And like I said, put out from Dynamite. This is not a book that we were talking about, like with Craig, where there is an ongoing thread through the anthology, except for the fact that they're all horror stories and they're all drawn by Eduardo Risso. When I say Eduardo Risso's name, I'm curious. We're going to play the question game. What do you guys think of?
Well, I'm reading Moonshine, so that's what I think of right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the same for me, even though I'm somehow got skipped on the second and third series of Moonshine. But yeah, that's the book I think of.
Most people would think 100 Bullets, I would assume.
So that was. So
I haven't read it.
We got to fix that because that shit's amazing.
100 Bullets was so much better than I even thought it was going to be, Craig. 100 Bullets is that is, I can't think of an Azzarello work that comes close.
It's just one of those that I haven't got around to yet, but intend to.
Well, I got them all. If you ever want to dip your toe in, I will gladly hold your hand while you wade into those waters.
Alrighty.
So when I think of Risso, I think of 100 Bullets, but it's not necessarily limited to that title. I think of crime stories. Like there are very few people who draw the kind of noirish crime stories um, in the same way that he does, because he has this style that's somewhere in between Darwin Cook and Frank Miller, that really just plays well to that. Whether the book is in black and white or in color, it plays it up. He's heavy on the inks. He really plays up the negative space of his panels. If you've never seen his work, do a quick Google search. You'll see all kind of stuff. And what I love about this anthology is it is more so leans towards the Frank Miller end of the scale than perhaps the Darwin Cook end of the scale. It's all done in black and white. It's got some moments that will remind you of Sin City. And the book starts off kind of in what I expect out of Eduardo Risso. It starts off with a crime story, and I'm not going to go through here and tell you about all 11 stories, but I just want to hit some of the highlights. And it is a mix of crime and horror and comedy that just it plays up so well. So the first story, you've got this kid, right? And he's a dumpy kid. He's chubby, and he's down in the basement. He walks around with his tongue sticking half-ass out of his mouth. You can tell this kid gets picked on by everybody. And his dad's out of the picture, right? Like dad's gone. We don't necessarily know what happened to dad, but mom is trying to play both roles. And respect to all the single mothers out there who are working that hard job, but maybe don't be like this single mother, because she's very abusive. She's the story opens up and she's just like punching the shit out of this chubby little kid in the basement, trying to get him to stand up and fight, to be hard, be like his daddy was. And he pushes back a little bit, and they get to a point to where he knocks his mom down because they're sparring, right? Like that's the only time you get to do that, when you're sparring with somebody. And she's really like, mom just beams with pride, and she pats him on the shoulders like, hey, come on, let's go get some ice cream. And they get to the top of the stairs. She's like, oh, hey, you know what? Look at that behind you. And he turns around, and then she pushes his ass down the stairs. And she's like, if you're gonna fight somebody, you don't leave them breathing. And like she pushes the kid down the stairs. Like this tubby little fuck just goes flip flopping down these old school rickety stairs back into the basement and just looks up at mom.
Your mom never pushed you down the stairs?
No, she did a lot of other stuff.
That was Thanksgiving dinner. No, I'm playing.
We didn't have stairs, so that might have been why. But as the kid grows up, like he grows up in this really abusive home, right? And with this mom who is never, she just is beyond hard. And again, I like, it's not anything that's punitive. She's abusive, right? And so, but one day she takes him to, she's like, you know what? There are certain things I can't teach you. I'm going to take you to your dad's old boss. And so she takes him and into this office, and there's this man, and he's in a suit, and it's the way Eduardo Risso draws gangsters. You've seen it if you know his work, and it's just beautiful. It's a wonderful moment. He's sitting behind this big desk. It's very Godfather-esque, and he's talking to this kid, and he's like, you know what, like out of respect for your dad, I'm going to take you on. I'm not going to pay you anything, but I'll show you the ropes. We'll teach you the business. And so they essentially start teaching this simpleton bastard how to be an enforcer. Like they start teaching him how to torture people, and what you find out is his dad was connected to the mafia. And so they start walking him through and trying to interrogate, doing all these stuff, doing all of this abhorrent things, and he finally starts to be good at something. Like it starts to build up his self-esteem. Like he's becoming something he always wants to be. His mommy's proud of him, but he's not without fault. Like sometimes he goes too far, and the person dies before he gets the information out of him. And this really pisses off everybody. They're like, dude, like you had one job. Like, come on. You can't just kill, like you got to get them to talk before you kill them. And he learns next time, but he takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Like he's always this kind of ebb and flow with success and with achieving his end goal, which is really, he just wants the adults in his life to be proud of him. So towards the end of this story, like the boss comes to him and he's like, all right, I'm giving you one last shot. You've done some good, but you keep fucking up. I'm going to give you this one last shot. And if you mess up this time, we're done. And when you know what happens when we're done. You don't just get to walk away. Like, you're done if you don't do this right. And so he walks in and he starts going to work on this person. And as the camera, as Eduardo Risso starts to zoom out, you start noticing it's the same dress that you've seen all throughout. And this person is his mother that he's interrogating, who is messed up. She crossed a line, and he is basically torturing his mother for information. And the last panel of the story, it's just like it's his mom saying, you can't even do this right. And she dies, which of course means he dies. It's a mix of comedy and terror. It really plays up the real horror in the story, which is the abusive, the relationship between abusive adults and kids who just want to satisfy them, and the steps that they're willing to go through, and the mental break. Like that way, it was amazing. You go on through the story. There's another issue, another story here that it's a monster story. It's very much it's reminiscent of oh man, I just went blank. Dr. Moreau. It's this scientist who's living out in the swamp, and he was pushed out of good society, polite society, because everybody's like, oh, his experiments are abhorrent. He's terrible. So he goes out and lives in a cabin in the swamp and starts experimenting on himself. Well, he turns himself into a lizard creature, right? Like that's where I say, like, the island of Dr. Moreau. He becomes this almost like half alligator, half frog swamp thing. And as poachers and people who are like land developers start to encroach on the swamp, he pushes back. Like, he just starts building up a body count, protecting the swamp, and he over time becomes more and more devoid of humanity. Well, one day, this search party comes out there, right, and they're led by this very me Tarzan Eugene gorgeous scientist woman, who she's in her safari gear, she's got her little hat on, and there's something about her, and she's, like I said, she's voluptuous, she's curvy, she's just drop dead beautiful, and it stirs his lots of things, but his humanity. And he's like, maybe I need to reconnect with the human race, because all I've been seeing were these dudes out here that I've been like murdering. And well, shit, I just got reminded of the one thing about being human that I really liked, which was a woman, and the touch and the feel of a woman and the smell of a woman. And so he goes up to her, like he's kind of watching her, and as like some wind blows and it blows the paper out, and he sees the front pages of paper, and she's not a land developer, she's not a poacher, she's actually a environmental scientist. She's there to study the effects of, like, deforestation on the swamp, everything, which really just, like, that seals the deal. Like, he's in love with her, and he's got to have her, and he's got to connect with her and just tell her how much, from both a scientific point, and from a I'm a heterosexual man and I'm attracted to you, but this lizard body makes me do things I'd like this is not who I am. So he goes up to her one day in the swamp, like surprises her, and tries to communicate with her, but he's lost the ability to communicate with the humans. And so really, it's just this lizard man dancing around, making these like kind of interpretive dance moves of anything else that is meant to, like, get her to understand who he is. And she gets this look in her eyes where she's almost knowing, like she softens. She's no longer afraid of this lizard creature. And he's like, okay, I'm breaking through. She gets me. She gets it. She's feeling it. And she goes to hug him. And he's just like, oh my God, like, I've done it. Like I'm reconnecting with the humanity. Like, she's going to fall in love with me and everything. And then while, she leans back and she reaches into her purse and she pulls out a trank gun, and she just darts this poor bastard. And, days later, he wakes up and he's now in a zoo. She's betrayed him. He is removed from his swamp, and he is now on display for all the gawkers to look at. It's come full circle. He wanted to become a rarity. He wanted to become an experiment, a rare animal, and he got his wish. And now he's getting peanuts thrown at him by little snot-nosed brats in a zoo somewhere, and is just wholly betrayed by the woman. I love this book. Probably my favorite story in this book is it's a story. It takes place at Halloween. It's October 31st. Haunted mansion, and there's a party going on, and you see this guy walking up, and he's talking about his costume, and he's dressed like a mummy, fully wrapped up, toilet paper, tissue, like the works. And Risso's, like I said, his black and white, the negative space that he uses, plays this up so freaking well. So the guy walks into the house and, he starts to hobnob. He's like, people are dressed up like Batman and the Joker, and, people are just in full costume, and he finds a woman who, again, and I'm saying this as a man who is very openly and very outspokenly gay. Eduardo Risso draws sexy women. Like he knows how to draw like the Wallywood sensuality of these women. And so he draws this woman who is dressed up like Snow White. So the mummy goes and starts talking to her, and he's like, "Hey, you're the most gorgeous person here. Like, I've got to dance with you." And she's like, "Okay." She's feeling it. She's digging it. So she walks over and they start dancing. He's like, "Hey, you want to go outside and get some air to talk?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." Like, and he's just, again, just lauding her with these compliments about how gorgeous she is. And she's like, "I've been thinking all night what you must look like under those wrappings, under those, those, you've got your face covered, cute mummy costume, but look, you're sitting there telling me I'm cute. What do you look like? If we're going to do this, I gotta see what I'm getting into." And so he takes off all his wrappings, and he's a gorgeous man. He's like, he's got just a strong chin. He's got these really chiseled features, very sharp. And she's just like, "Oh shit, dude, you fine. Like we can make this happen." And so he leans in to give her a kiss, and his fangs pop out. And dude's a vampire. He's a vampire dressed like a mummy in a Halloween costume party, and he just sucks Snow White dry. Just goes full blown, kills her. She's done. She's dead. And he goes, he wraps himself back up and goes, walks through the party. Well, a few minutes later, another couple of party goers, they saunter out to the balcony, and they're going to do some make out time too. They were about to have some fun, and they see Snow White just sitting there dead as shit, and they start freaking out, and they approach the body, and they see the bite marks on her neck, the fangs, and they're just like, "She's been sucked dry. It's a vampire." And of course, they're at a Halloween party. Everybody turns around at the poor bastard that's dressed up like Dracula, and they just go in on him. Like, they just start beating the shit out of this poor guy. And as he's like in a cloud of smoke with all these party goers just like assaulting him and murdering this guy, the mummy just walks out, and just, he's like, there's nothing I can do for the dude. And all the time he's like burping, he's belching, he's almost intoxicated on the blood. And, he's kind of chuckling. He's like, he genuinely feels bad for this poor guy. Talk about wrong place at the wrong time. And so he's leaving. He's like, I couldn't help him if I wanted to now. Like, the mob has made up their mind, and people believe what they want to believe, whether the person is in a costume or not. 11 stories in this book, an amazing collection. Like I said, Eduardo Risso he's one of those artists who he can do no wrong. He can do very little wrong in my book. I am constantly in awe of his work. I don't know how I missed this story, but I'm sure hella glad I got it. I paid $5 for it. Maybe the best $5 I've ever spent. And it just goes on from there. There's, there's more monster stories. There's more murder stories. There's more crime stories. It points out in a lot of ways that the real terror that we experience are the small moments of life. And it does so in the best ways. Like I said, Eduardo Risso, his art is so fitting for this. It brings it to another level. The thickness of his lines, the heaviness of his inks, the places where he chooses to make it more dark. There are panels in this book where he draws, and you can tell there are wood panels behind the figures, and you can tell the paint's chipped off because where he chooses to draw the wood grain. Like, that selective eye is just so stunning, and you don't get that from very many figures. You don't get it from very many figures at all. So if you can find this, I encourage you to do so. If you have to order it, if you can hunt it down from a used comic shop somewhere, like, check it out. It's that time of year where everybody's giddy about, we're wanting to watch horror movies, we're wanting to read horror stories. Eduardo Risso's Tales of Terror, 11 Shocking Stories of Suspense from Dynamite, you can do no wrong. It will make you smile with every page and every panel. So go hunt it down. I'm putting you all on a quest.
I'd have bought that if I'd have seen it. You never would have had that if I'd have seen it.
Beat you to it.
I bought some stuff at that $5 bin too. I don't know how I missed that one. I wonder if they put it in after I left. They probably did. Son of bitches.
What all did you buy, if you don't mind me asking?
I picked up a hardcover Richard Starks Parker, The Score.
Nice.
Adopted and illustrated by Darwin Cook.
Yes,
I
sir.
picked that up. I picked up
Awesome.
Doctor Sleepless from Warren Ellis, that collection.
Oh,
Picked
nice.
up League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Century 1910. I think that's all I picked up. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but yeah, I picked up a handful of stuff when I was in there that day.
Craig, have you snagged anything out of the $5 bin? I don't know if you've been up there or not. I know you've had a busy week.
I mean, I've been up there. I had a book in my hand that I was going to get, and I don't even remember what it was now. And I looked down, and it was volume 3.
Oh,
and I'm like,
I
yeah,
hate when
never
that
mind. Yeah. So yeah, it's some good deals in there though.
Yeah, ridiculously good deal. I picked up another book out of there that I also know that's how I got to it before Matt got there. Because this book would have 1000%, it would have jumped up and embraced Matt. Like Matt wouldn't have had time to get to it. The book would have just came to him because he's got that kind of gravitational pull. It is drawn by Mr. Carlos Ezquerra. It is produced and published by Image Comics. It is written by Mr. Garth Ennis, and it's The Adventures of the Rifle Brigade. Sorry.
Oh, I've got that already. Yeah.
Oh, that's why you left it behind. Never mind.
Mm-hmm.
So look, $5. I also picked up Super Spy. So yeah, $15. I got 3 amazing series. Like, shout out to Kapow. And I know everybody has, if you're listening to this and you go to a local comic shop and you can find deals, shout those out because folks in your area might want to know that. But at least for Central Arkansas, you got to swing by Kapow. So, well,
do you
guys.
shout them out, or do you just keep them to yourself so that no one else gets the good stuff?
I shout them out after I buy them. and also after I go hide them if I can't spend any more money, if my budget's been blown, I'll like find a place to like stash my wares. I used to do that in Hastings all the time.
And Hastings, there's a throwback.
Deep cuts, boo, deep cuts. Well, all right, guys. I've got nothing else as far as my book that I want to talk about. We got anything else we want to throw out there?
Move on to our next topic.
All right. Well, let's do that. Well, next week, actually, you know what? I do have something. I want to say, Craig, you made a post on our Facebook group yesterday, and I want to say thank you to you for it, and I want to say thank you to everybody who wrote on that.
I should have brought this up earlier. I'm sorry.
No, dude, no worries. Yesterday was my birthday, and I'm most of the time pretty quiet about things like that. I don't bring like my personal stuff to the page, but Craig reached out on our Facebook group and told me happy birthday, which I really appreciate, and I love you for it. So because you did that, I put up a post and said, hey, since I turned 33 today, I want to see everybody's favorite 33rd issues. I figured that was a cool game we could play, right? Like, you pick a number, you go through and you find out anything. The image I posted was the cover of Avengers number 33 from the mid 2000s, the Busiek Perez issue. You got Count Nefaro fighting the Avengers, and Triathlon rescuing Madame Mask, Scarlet Witch being badass because that's who she is. Vision is in there, Warbird's in there, Iron Man's getting knocked on his ass because that's what happens. But I thought it was a great cover. But I want to shout out some folks who also commented on that. And just because, hey, they did it, so I might as well. Craig posted X-Men number 33 from way back in the day. A great image of Juggernaut. Let's see, Nick Helms, who's also doing some really cool film stuff in the world. He posted Amazing Spider-Man number 33, which is one of my favorite issues of Spider-Man. It's when he gets trapped under that giant piece of machinery and has to pull himself up. It's one of the best moments in Spider-Man history. Our boy Castro posted. He posted Thunderbolts number 33. Also Busiek and Bagley on this one, kind of the same era of the image I posted. Aaron Godwin threw up Hulk number 33. I forget which year this was, but this was Gabriel Hardman art, and Parker did the writing on that. It was actually
that was the Red Hulk cover, right?
I think
or
so.
Was
yeah,
that that was early 2000s.
Yeah, I was trying to. I remember that era. I just don't have that. He also posted Howard the Duck number 33, which was awesome. I love that he posted that. And then more recently, Deathstroke number 33 from the Christopher Priest Ed Bean's Deathstroke run, which I have not read, and I really need to dip out. But to everybody who reached out and told me happy birthday, I just want to shout out and give you back some love. I really appreciate it. Made me feel great. And I thought the covers were awesome. I like those little games. You can see what people have loved throughout history. So just wanted to give some of our listeners a little shout out, a little airtime. Let them know we love them.
Yeah.
Well, what's coming out next week that you want to bring home, Craig?
I'm going to, I don't know if I ordered this or not, but if not, I'm going to have them order it for me. Dracula Mother Fucker by Image Comics. It's an OGN by Alex DeCampi and Erica Henderson. Vienna, 1889, Dracula's brides nail him to the bottom of his coffin. Los Angeles, 1974, an aging starlet decides to raise the stakes. I'm sure there's no pun intended there. Crime scene photographer Quincy Harker is the only man who knows it's happened. But will anyone believe him before he gets his own chalk outline? There you go.
Ooh.
Dracula Mother Fucker is your choice for next week.
It's Erica Henderson, so you're not going to go wrong picking up that book.
I'm excited.
Nice. Matt, what you going to grab this week, boo?
Not Dracula Motherfucker.
That does look interesting. I'm laughing at the way you said I'm excited. I'm excited.
I'm going on about 5 hours of sleep. So
yeah. But I do appreciate the sentiment and the effort, however. So next week's going to be a light week for me, man. But what is coming out. There's some things that I'm really anticipating that I've been reading currently already. One of those being from DC Comics, Batman's Grave, number 11.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this is by Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch. This is number 11 of 12, so bittersweet. We're on the very much downhill slide of this series. It has just been one of the most outstanding Batman reads I've read in recent history. So I'm really hate that this is coming to an end, but I'm also really excited about how it's going to do so.
Been talking this book up. I'm ready. I know you hate it's going to end. I'm ready for him to go ahead and put the lid on it so I can read it. So
it's hella good.
Craig, you're loving this as well, right?
Yeah. This goes well. I read alphabetically, so it's always near the top of my stack. But if I were to organize by excitement, it would be at the very top.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I'm gonna follow Mr. Matt Trogdon down the DC rabbit hole. The book that I'm most excited about coming out next week is none other than Rorschach number 1. I've been anticipating this book since it was just kind of put out there that it was happening. I'm not somebody who cares about, like we should leave these characters alone. I think that ship has sailed, and it's sailed with the Before Watchmen stuff. And I love the Watchmen series from HBO. I think it's great to look into the future of this world. This book is written by Tom King with art by Jorge Forns. A variant cover by Jay Lee, which I'm gonna try to pick up. So this book takes place about 35 years after that scene from the original Watchmen where Ozymandias dropped an interdimensional squid on New York City and killed a whole bunch of folks. And we all know what happened after that. Rorschach threatened to rat everybody out, tell everybody what happened. But they couldn't let that happen because arguably in doing so, they prevented nuclear war and stopped everybody from destroying the planet. Since that time, Rorschach died, right? Like he got evaporated by Dr. Manhattan. But there's been a figure in a fedora mask and a trench coat that has become a very divisive cultural icon. It's playing up the side. It's kind of like the Punisher symbol, right? Like you see what it is, and then you see the people who co-opt it, and you're like, that's not what that means. And they're like, nope, but it does now. So what does it mean when Rorschach reappears as an assassin? And he's trying to kill a candidate who's running against President Robert Redford in this world. That's what this book is going to look at. It's a conspiracy theory. There's alien invasions, disgraced do-gooders, mystic visions. There's going to be a lot of stuff. I know for this podcast, Tom King is, he's ebb or flow. I tend to love the majority of what he does, and for others, their mileage may vary. But I'm certainly curious what he does with this, and I'm buying into it. So I'm gonna check it out. I want to say in this Jay Lee variant cover, they've got like Rorschach like doing curls in front of a mirror, but he's doing the thing where he's only been using one arm, so it looks like the one arm is really bulked up, but his dumbbells are Dr. Manhattan. So fun stuff. So I'm gonna check that out. Anything else? Is there a fourth book that struck anybody's fancy this week, or do I get to pull one out of a hat?
Pull one out of a hat from my standpoint.
I will do so.
Immortal Hulk number 38 is what you meant.
Well, we'll throw that one on the list. And then we will go on from there. Well, all right. Well, boys, girls, and gender nonconforming folks, we hope you have enjoyed chit-chatting with us on a Sunday morning for us, or whenever you all choose to listen to this. I don't know when you do, but we hope you enjoyed it. It is one of the highlights of my week, and I think the guys feel the same. Go check out your local comic shop. If you want to shout them out on any of our social media pages, feel free to do so. I've already promoted those enough and know where to find them. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, whatever you don't want to put on social media, but you want to email them to us, fire us off a little letter. We're southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. Other than that, if in Arkansas it's too late, if you haven't already registered to vote, I'm going to wag my finger at you, but if you're in a state that you can still register to vote, go do so and then vote. It's important. I'm not going to preach about who you need to vote for. That's up to you. But it's important that you do so. So go do that. Try to have a good week. Keep your head up. It's hard times right now for everybody. If you get to a space that things get a little dark and maybe you need to talk to somebody, please do so, or reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We appreciate everyone who listens to this show. We appreciate all of our friends. We appreciate people who are, fans of the show that we haven't met yet. We appreciate you too. With all that being said, have a great week. We'll be back same place, same time next week. And until that time, go forth and love some comics.
Woo! There go the last of Craig's energy reserves.
Yep.
He's a little battery sounds flashing.